Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Lunar Counseling Podcast. I'm your host, Kiara Brown, a licensed professional counselor, EMDR trained therapist, and a certified hypnotherapist, and the owner of Lunar Counseling. This podcast is a space for real, frank conversations with therapists about their work, their journeys, and the human side of healing. Today, I'm joined by the amazing Keely Rodiguez, a licensed professional counselor supervisor, and the founder of Keely Rodriguez Therapy. She works with women in their 30s, 40s, and 50s and beyond for navigating anxiety, burnout, trauma, and the emotional and physical shifts of perimenopause, menopause, and midlife transitions. Her clients are often highly capable women, managing careers, families, and caregiving. People look like they have it all together, but internally feel overwhelmed, disconnected, and worn thin. She uses trauma-informed approaches like EMDR and Brainspotting. She helps women with long held pressure, heal old wounds, and reconnect with themselves in meaningful and sustainable ways. And what brings a powerful depth to her work is her lived experience. Before becoming a therapist, Keely had a career in speechwriting, advertising, and pharmaceutical sales. Ah, right. She understands the demands of being everything to everyone, having navigated work, motherhood, caregiving, menopause, and a late in life diagnosis of inattentive ADHD, which she now sees as a strength. She lives in Texas with her husband of 27 years and their three dogs. She's also a certified yoga teacher who values deep conversations, authentic connection, and humor in hard moments. She offers in-person therapy in Austin and South Texas, as well as online proven across Texas. So Keely, welcome. And I'm so glad that you're here.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here too. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So I asked everyone, what brought you to being a therapist? Sounds like you had a whole journey before you got here. So what
Mm.
brought you here?
Yeah, so I think I took a career assessment in my junior year of high school. I think everybody, maybe that was just in the 80s, but everybody generally takes something like that as a high school student. So I took that and it said I would either be an actress because I'm a musical theater kid from the very beginning. I think I came out of the womb singing show too. And so I was either going to be an actress or I was going to be a psychologist at the time or a therapist. And so I was like, okay, therapy sounds really boring. So let me go and get excited about acting and stuff like that. But that kind of always stuck in the back of my head. And so I had went on to college, went and studied a bunch of different things and ended up because I am multifaceted as we all are as humans. I ended up sitting down with a career counselor at the University of Texas after a few years. And I had taken so many different classes at so many different colleges. We basically totaled up which college I should be in by the amount of classes that I had because I was all over the place. Thank you, ADHD, which I didn't know at the time. And I got a degree in communications from there and went into politics, went into advertising, went into pharmaceutical sales. But in the back of my brain, I always thought about that thing about being a therapist was still there. I also had my own struggles with anxiety and depression, especially in high school and early adulthood. And I had a fabulous counselor who took me through that journey and really made a huge impact on my life. I noticed that I was using my therapy hat in pharmaceutical sales. The people that I were calling on, I knew a ton about their lives, what they were going through, the emotions. And finally, at 40, I decided to switch gears and go back to graduate school, leaving a six-figure career in pharmaceutical sales. And that's how I became a therapist. That's my kind of unusual journey to sitting in a therapy chair now.
Wow, that's amazing. Look, you're not the. I want to talk a little bit about like, your late in life diagnosis with ADHD real quick.
Yeah.
I feel like it's so common lately, especially for women. So I think it was about you that it slipped through the cracks whenever you were younger.
I think so. I was the girl that sat in the back of the classroom and did a lot of daydreaming, or I would be really talkative and stuff like that, but I never got in trouble. And you have to understand, I am a child of the 80s. So this was mid 80s when I was in school, in high school, and I just wasn't the kid that got in trouble. My grades weren't awesome, but I got by. I didn't crash and burn in terms of academically. I had severe dyslexia, but at that time, at least in my little corner of the world, we didn't know dyslexia and ADHD often go hand in hand. And I just was fully functioning. Often I just knew in my brain that no matter what anybody, if you could give 100%, I had to give 150% just to pass because I knew I had struggles. I just didn't know all of the struggles. And so finally, it wasn't until my son and my daughter got diagnosed and I started to look at myself and say, there's something going on. And so, yeah, I was diagnosed at 53,
Wow. That is like really late. Yes.
really late, really late.
I really feel like that definitely was like, I think they said in your bio is like really eye opening and kind of maybe helped you like connect with your kids. See, like you all, like you went through those struggles same way, but not like you're obviously getting them help, but
A
out of
hundred, a
pocket.
100%. Yeah, and it was funny because I finally got some hints about it myself and ran down the hall because I have a psychiatrist who works in our office suite. And I said, I think I need to have you do an evaluation. And she was like, okay, for who do you need me to evaluate? And I was like, me, I think I have ADHD. And she started dying laughing. She was like, I thought you had a diagnosis. Everybody knows that you have ADHD, Keely. And then she asked me later on, which was hilarious. She said, let me ask you something, Keely. How many of your clients are neurodivergent? And I sat there and I was like, probably about 80%. And she said, did it ever make you wonder at all why you connected with those clients so much? And I was like, no, I had no idea. And she said, because you're neurodivergent too.
Right. That all tracks.
Yeah. So is it doing anything differently? No, not necessarily for me. I do take a little bit of medication support because I find myself just a little bit more efficient. I'm not having to fight so hard to do 150% just to keep up with normal. But it just feels good now to go, oh, this makes sense for so many different reasons and what I've done in the past, my choices, and all that sort of stuff. And I do think it's a superpower, just like Superman or Wonder Woman. They have strengths, but they can also overuse those strengths and stuff like that. So I have to keep it in mind that I'm using my strength, but don't let it go overboard.
Yeah. Well, it's not, yeah, you know, it's man, like there's his superpowers, but like tonight is his weakness. There's two sides of the same coin having the superpowers.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that was the reason why. So I've not had the typical, I went to undergrad and got a psychology degree and then went to graduate school and got a counseling master's in counseling and stuff like that. No, that's not my typical path.
Whenever you left, when you graduated from graduate school, like what was your experience after that?
So post grad, I worked in a treatment facility with men and women who were struggling with kind of a combination of mental health struggles as well as addiction struggles. And I worked with them for a good long while. I enjoyed the work tremendously. It was hard on me at the time. And so I finally decided to transition out. I got very curious about trauma and stuff like this. This was before EMDR was out there in a major way. And so I decided to really specifically go into trauma in my initial private practice.
We had talked about this was before we recorded, but you said that you had a business before this your current one. So how did that form?
Where I live in South Texas at the time, there weren't as many providers, many therapists that were in private practice. So as I built up my own solo private practice initially, then I decided to bring on some other therapists who maybe financially couldn't have maintained the overhead of doing their own personal private practice. They were just beginning. And I thought, oh, this would be a great way to split bills with everybody, help everybody learn how to develop a private practice, help them market themselves and build up that caseload and everything like that. So I've worked with several therapists in the South Texas community, which is something I'm really proud of, that there are so many more therapists now in private practice. And I had a little part in building the resources for the community. And I'll always be really proud of that.
Amazing. So the ones that like you worked with, do you guys all also collaborate and like have like your own little cohort essentially?
Yeah, we definitely do trade off and work with each other within the community. And that's built out as well. I've done a lot of community outreach stuff so that even if I haven't worked with therapists, I've supported therapists and also been able to support the community have more and more resources, whether that's trainings or different speaking engagements and stuff like that. So that was one thing that I felt really strongly about is I wanted my community to have resources that weren't there 10 years ago or 15 years ago. We've done that for sure.
Amazing. So what kind of like advocacy things like do you guys usually do?
So I recently brought in brain spotting training for a national speaker who came in from Milwaukee. She did 2 full weekends. And this is just an example, but we had over 10 therapists who are bilingual be able to be fully trained in brain spotting level 1 and level 2, and that's really exciting because she's a dear friend of mine and she was willing to come down at like a cut the deepest discounted rate. She stayed with me. It was amazing. And enabled these therapists who would have never had access to a national speaker like this get the training and now be able to help the community. Although I speak Spanish, I am not bilingual, would not use it in a therapy session. And so now they're touching clients in a way of processing trauma that they would have never been able to access before. So those are things that I'm like super proud of.
Amazing. So I'm curious, before you became a therapist, were you doing all of this community outreach stuff as well whenever you do like pharmaceutical sales? Or is it like new?
I was doing a little bit of community outreach just in different ways, whether it was through the community or a church environment or in fine arts in the community and stuff like that. I've always had little projects that I would do, but I really dialed it up. I had several like friends and family members when I was in pharmaceutical sales that I knew all the doctors for basically gosh, probably 3 hours from here, I knew all the doctors in the area because I called on them. And because of that, I had clients who would, or friends and family who would ask me about who are the good therapists, who are the good psychiatrists, and stuff like that. And it was very different in the community because it was a real struggle to find good therapists. There were some really awesome original therapists in the area that I'm still very good colleagues and friends with, but they were often always booked. And I saw this, like, I would go and ask my doctors. I sold Zoloft, which was one of the pharmaceutical drugs that got me to start talking to doctors and nurse practitioners about what are our mental health resources like in the area. And I realized they weren't even able to refer because they were like, there just not enough therapists in the area. So people were not getting mental health support. And my doctors kept on starting to say, hey, if you go back to graduate school and open private practice, I'll refer to you. We need help in this area. And so that's how it all began to shift a little bit for me.
Amazing. How did your family take the big career shift? Because leaving six figures to do private practice, like it takes a long time to build it up. How,
Totally does. Sure. I am super grateful. My husband, like 100% supported me. I think there were other family members who were like, oh, what are you doing? And everything like that. But my husband was the one who believed in me and said, you got to get this going. I believe that you can do this and you can change people's lives. And so, yeah, then I was all in if I had his support.
like, I love that he was like super supportive. Well, how old were your kids whenever you went back?
So my kids, when I went back to school, they were in junior high and high school.
So all the activities.
Yes, all the activities. Yes, absolutely. And during my graduate program was at night. So for several years, as I was collecting hours and doing all the sort of things, my husband was doing an amazing job of running around and helping with that sort of stuff. And then my parents-in-law and my sister-in-law, like I felt like I had a team of people behind me managing some of this stuff. So it was almost like we were all going to graduate school together because they were picking up when I couldn't pick up and stuff like that.
That's awesome. So that you had that support because that sounds like you have such a super tight knit community, not like
Yeah.
family and community all together. Like you have all that support. That's so amazing.
Yeah. It was like essential. And they're really proud of the work that I've done. And it makes me really, I'm so grateful to have had them.
Yeah, that's so great. So you did like drug and alcohol and mental health initially, like branched out to
Mhm.
trauma.
Yep.
Like how did that like those experiences then lead you to like where you currently are now, with like mostly strictly women and doing perimenopause and like women in like 30s, 40s, 50s? Like, how did that get you there?
Yeah, yeah. I started doing trauma and with EMDR and brain spotting and everything like that. I found that I connected really well to women who were struggling with that stuff. And then as I went through my own journey into perimenopause and menopause, I started to really see, hey, this is a tough time in women's lives. I'm noticing it myself. I'm noticing it with my girlfriends when we're going to brunch or talking to my sister-in-laws. Like it was really noticeable. And so I started thinking, I can help so many people, but where do I feel comfortable and really drawn to? And I feel really drawn to working with women who are trying to do all the things. Plus, they're struggling with these hormonal changes. And just there's a lot of identity shifts that happen in later 30s, early 40s, 50s. And it's different for everybody. There's a different journey, but there are lots of things that can pop up during that time. And so I started to narrow, as we do. We start broad generally as therapists, and then we narrow down. And now I feel like I'm really at the sweet spot where I can definitely help the women because I'm either where they're at or I've been where they're at. That's the reason why I connect with those women so much.
That's cool. You got like that perimenopause. I'm not there yet. I'm only I've heard the horror stories from everyone that I've talked to about getting to that phase of life. So it's definitely nice to have support through it. Like, someone like I've been through it. These are the things that you can expect. These are things that you can do, and they kind of collaborate. And it's super cool.
Yeah, yeah. I find that there's one so right now there's so much talk about it on socials and stuff like that. And there's this push to okay, it's all about hormones. It's all about HRT, hormone replacement therapy and stuff like that. And that is so great. And believe me, it was life-changing for me. I was really struggling. And so I had the ability to access that sort of stuff. Sometimes it doesn't work for everybody, but it does. It definitely is great for hundreds of thousands of women. But the one thing that I noticed that we're not really talking about is now it's more like the magic cream, the magic pellet, the magic patch sort of thing. But there's also a bunch of stuff that goes on. It's not just hormones, but there's also a bunch of stuff that happens to women during these times. And those are the identity shifts that I talk to clients about a lot. So great, we get the hormones under control, but then sometimes women are like, I still feel really anxious or I'm grieving or some of this trauma stuff that I've thrown it back in the closet of my brain is starting to seep out and stuff like that. So there's a lot more going on mental health wise. Sometimes HRT helps that tremendously and the anxiety goes down, but sometimes there's still a whole bunch of stuff that we're struggling with.
It makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because honestly, yeah, hormones, but and as the hormone changes, that it changes our identity. It's just from like even going 20 to 30. Personally, that's a huge shift to myself. Like going from even 25 to 30, it's a huge shift for me. And like
Yeah,
you throw kids into the mix, it changes it even more. So it's definitely crazy.
100%. So in like everybody's timeline on these things is different. Sometimes people are still having children into their late 30s and early 40s and mid 40s and stuff like that. But if you're thinking about during these time periods, there are things like you're raising kids, you're juggling a career. Lots of times there begins to be biological changes. Then maybe you're launching kids into adulthood, you're prepping them for their last few years of high school, but there's going to be an identity shift there. You might start caring for your aging parents, or maybe you're just even seeing that they're starting to age more. You need to be around more and stuff like that. So that's another thing. Your relationship might be changing. Relationships change sometimes when dynamics change at home. And so it's a lot of stuff that happens during those ages. And it can really bring up some major anxiety, sometimes some grief, sometimes some old wounds and trauma. There are a lot of things that are happening during those ages.
Yeah. So if you don't mind me asking, whenever you were going through like these stages, what do you feel like helped you the best to cope through it and like, get through it?
Yeah. So I think, first of all, just normalizing the fact that there are some major identity shifts that are really important. I'll speak from my own experience. I have two adult kids. One is in college and one is working professionally now. And I talk a lot about college drop off and the last couple of years of high school and it's this slow grieving process, what it feels like when the house is quiet and stuff. I found that getting through those things, really learning to make adult women friendships again and to nurture those is really important. That was one of the things that really saved me a whole bunch. I learned a lot about how to look at my relationship differently, how to lean into that, because that's always a time when that kind of empty nest transition where people kind of look at the other person and say, "Hey, do I want to keep on doing this with you or not?" So I learned how to lean into some of those things as well. And now I'm working on the aging parent and how I can care for and caregive when necessary. Although I'm very lucky, my parents are still going to the gym and they're in their early 80s, late 70s, and stuff like that. But those are still things that I'm dealing with as well. So, yeah.
That's definitely a lot. Like I mean, I was a history for my parents, but like whenever I'm the youngest of five personally. And like whenever
Uh-huh.
my parents dropped me off at college, having the baby, it was like
Uh-huh.
I was crying because I was always like so close to my mom. My mom was crying and like the whole thing. It was like I'm the baby. Like the baby's gone. And then like we never none of us really split. There were times when each of us have come back into the house. It was home.
Yeah. It's totally weird from the perspective of the parent for 18, 19, 20 years old, even up, depending on people's circumstances. Like all of a sudden, you have dedicated your life to the feeding and nurturing and well being of this person. And all of a sudden, it's not the same anymore. And there's a lot of new ways that you have to parent because you're not the manager of your adult kid's life anymore. You are more like the coach, and learning how to coach rather than manage is another identity shift. And if you are not the manager anymore, because management is super intensive, you got a lot of time on your hands. So how are you going to use that time for fun and connection with friends and stuff like that? So there are a lot of dynamics that women don't realize until you get there and go, "Whoa, wait, I didn't get the memo on this one. This is a really weird stage of life."
One of us that's parenting in general though. Like no one really knows what's coming until you're in it. It's just
Exactly, exactly. And I think sometimes women want to be perceived like they got it all under control. It's harder to be vulnerable. And I think it's important to get the message out. It's okay to be totally confused. It's okay that you're struggling in this. And it helps to do a little bit of therapy around this so that you can manage those identity shifts so they don't feel so lonely and isolating because it can be for sure.
oh yeah, definitely. So you mentioned like a great tidbit about like friendships and like having adult female
Mm,
friendships. Just super
yeah.
challenging. Like in today's for me, like it feels like in today's world to actually find friendships. So how did you manage that dynamic whenever you're going through like empty nester phase?
I will be real honest. I am learning as I'm going. So I'm definitely building the airplane as I'm going on this whole thing. But what I have learned is that, and here's another thing that's funny is like a news flash that I didn't get as well, which was when you have kids, you end up having friendships with some of your kids' parents, your some of your kids' friends' parents, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because y'all are all doing the same activities, you're all going to the soccer games together or the dance recitals or whatever. You see these people drop off and pick up and everything like that. What I didn't even realize, I realized it from a book setting, but not in a, oh, wow, is that once your kids are not around, you are not seeing this people as much. So if you launch your kids into adulthood, whether that's college or professionally, all of a sudden a large portion of the friends that you have been in contact with for maybe 18 years or so, you don't see them as often. And those friendships, unless they're nurtured, fade off. And that is really shocking because all of a sudden you're lonely at home, your kid's not there, and now you're not seeing these people as consistently at all. So, part of the thing we have to do is looking for activities or things that you're interested in where you might start to meet other people outside of your circle. If you have a few friends, like I just set up a brunch with some girlfriends this last weekend, and we're going to do a brunch at my house in about a month and a half because we're all so busy with our schedules. That was another thing that I learned. But at the brunch, everybody has to bring they have to bring a plus one. They have to bring another friend so that we are starting to build a bigger group of friendships and connections and stuff like that. I'm constantly looking for different ways to meet new people and do new things. So I challenge myself like once a week, once a month, just to be in a different environment where I'm meeting people. And lots of times that's around an activity like a yoga class or doing an art class or something like that. But you have to work at it a little bit. And it's awkward and not as easy and stuff, but you have to work at it a little bit. They're worth it.
It's so true because, like, I remember, like, in elementary school, I was like the shy kids. I wasn't like putting myself out there. And my best friends at the time, like, they were the ones like, "You're mine now." Like, I was taking talk to you eventually. And so, like, we were friends for 20 plus years. And then, adult life happens and like you're apart. Totally normal. And then you start working. And like my best friend now, like, she was my work partner when I did family based. Like, her and I get together like occasionally. And like, she's like the aunt to my kids now. And but you're right, like, and then so that's all practicing, like, you do have to go out and meet new people and get yourself out there, which is not always easy, like you said, because
Yeah, yeah. And I try really hard because everybody's busy. Like all of my friends are professionals. They're either highly professionals or they have their own business or something like that. The biggest mind shift for me was to set aside the thought like that everybody else is having fun and I'm not. They're busy too. So I send out messages like, "Hey, I'm really lonely. I want to get together with you," and stuff like that, just to put myself out there a little bit to reconnect. And it might not be, so don't sit around and think like nobody wants to be my friend because they're not calling. You got to be the person to call. You've got to be the person to text. You've got to be the person, if you're lonely, to say, "Hey, anybody want to get together this week, next month, in 6 weeks," or something like that. I think we often, and I see this with clients, even clients that I still see who are in their 20s and beyond, but it's especially challenging with adult women. I think we wait around thinking for other people to ask us to do stuff, and you may be waiting a long time, not because they don't want to do stuff with you, just because they're just as busy as you are. You got to make the time to ask them to do something for sure.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I have a lot of people too that on my caseload that talk about, "I'm so lonely, and my friends are busy, they're doing X, Y, and Z, we can't ever get together." Well, they didn't text me, so I don't wanna text them, and if they really wanna see me, they'll text me. I'm like, but they're also you said that they're also busy too. So if you're thinking about them, message them. It's, like, really simple, like, all you have to do
Yeah.
is say, "Hey, thinking about you. Do you wanna get together soon?" Like, it's
Yeah.
something as
Yeah.
simple as that, and
Absolutely. And get it on the schedule. And don't take it personally if they can't or if they delay and texting back or it takes a while to get back with them. Literally, took all my girlfriends. I basically did a poll and said, okay, here are all the weekends from January to mid March. What week can we have a brunch on Saturday? And it took like several back and forth, but I think we have to, and I know it's super hard to get over that barrier, but I think we have to ask. I think we have to engage first. Don't sit around and wait for somebody else to call. They may, but they may not. And so we got to do it ourselves.
Oh, that is really true. Because and it also just like energetically, like if everyone's just burnt out, I feel like too, just the world is so hustle and all the time, like it's hard for people to even take a breather. So if you have like that breathing moment whenever they don't, like in your breathing moment, you're like, oh, I will talk to you so and so. Like you just send a message to them and kind of get things going. I think which is huge. But yeah, like, like not being literally upset when they don't respond right away. If people are in meetings, especially people working or they have young kids, like they're not constantly going to be responding to messages like right away.
Yeah, and think about it, you may have had this same experience when you get friends together, like you have a girls' night, you have a brunch, you go on a walk. That's one of my favorite things to do is just like if one of my friends wants to connect, we go on a walk together. So that way we get our exercise in and we get to talk. But if you are doing some of those things, it's going to make a huge difference in terms of your feelings of loneliness and anxiety and all that sort of stuff. So we've got to get out there and really be active in making the choices that we need to make ourselves feel better.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for that little tidbit because I know that's been like a huge thing for some people lately. Like, how to make friends in my 30s and on? Because it is definitely a challenge.
It is for sure. I also like to do just go somewhere different. I think it's cool. I live in an area where a lot of tourists come to my area all the time. It's very touristy. And lots of times I haven't been to the places that the tourists are attracted to. So I like to go and explore your hometown as if you were a tourist and check out new things, try out new things. And most places that you go, whether it's an art class or a new workout facility or something like that, most of the time you can do one thing for free. Most places will say first class for free or whatever. But if you're still going to the same environment, you're still going to the same thing every single day, you're gonna meet the same people. To meet new people, you gotta try something new.
That is really true, which is scary for a lot of people because of the fear of doing something wrong or being like, perceived. Or it's just, like the social anxiety piece is like huge, which is
A
understandable. But like
hundred.
the only way to get over those things is like to expose yourself to them and just like use the
Yes.
things that you work through like in therapy. Okay, I can do like deep breathing or do X, Y, and Z coping so that you've worked on and can like really get grounded in that moment, which is huge.
And also, maybe there's another person that you know who's wanting to do a similar thing that can be your wingman and stuff like that, just to go and try something new. So I know it's not easy, but whether you're looking for a date or you're looking for a friend, unless you fall in love with the UPS man who drops off your packages, or you got to get out a little bit more. And I know sometimes it can be a super big ask, but at least when it comes to women, when women get together, almost always they, at the end of the event, they say, boy, did I need this. I sure needed this. When can we do this again?
Thought about putting on like retreats, something like for the women, like about like even about like your perimenopause or like even just like anything else.
Absolutely. I have so many, hello ADHD. I have so many ideas about that. And I totally want to do things like that. One of the most powerful things that I've done in my own personal therapy is that I've gone to intensives for brain spotting, which are a week-long retreat where therapists learn brain spotting, but they also are able to practice their own brain spotting with other therapists. And although I wouldn't do a week-long retreat, I think the same sort of model can be so amazingly healing. So I have 2 other brain spotting therapists that we're all talking about creating a retreat with a small group of women, maybe 8 or so, that we could do a incredible retreat to do some healing, but also learn some of these connecting things so that they can build a community. And I think that would be really cool. I happen to live about 20 miles from South Padre Island, which is a beautiful beach area in Texas. And we can definitely, that's where we're going with that for sure. So it is definitely on my mind.
Cool. Like Texas is far away. You just are not on the flight. There. Let me know.
I will let you know. Sure.
Yeah, I was like, I went in one retreat and it was only for a weekend, but it was amazing. Like it was
Mm.
just getting away from. I had 2 young kids, so getting a break from the 2 young kids, just like focusing on myself.
Yes.
As husband actually got to deal with the mom things I used to do whenever he's away for drill. I'm like, you can still handle it. And
Yes.
it was just
Yes.
amazing.
No, I think that's so important. And look, in the world right now that we live in, and there is so much going on, having a space to carve out to be in community with other women, I think is so invaluable at this point. And as we have technology and AI and all of those sorts of things, which have good things about them and bad things about them, I think that the human connection is really important. That's going to be more and more valuable as we go along for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I fully agree with that completely. Thank you so much. Thank you, Lee. I hope this has been amazing. One thing I like to ask everyone when you wrap up is how do you prefer people to find you? And if you have any, like, what tidbits you want them to know or look at?
Yeah. So the best way to find me, if you're a resident of Texas, is on my website, which is www.keely. It's spelled Keely, Rodriguez Therapy.com. And that's a really good place to find me. There's a really nice little quiz there that's all about, is this stress, anxiety, hormones, or am I just losing it? And it's a good way to kind of figure out what may be going on there. I have a pretty active YouTube channel and I'm active on social media. The handle on Instagram is Keely Rodriguez Therapist. And even if you're not in the area in the state of Texas, I offer lots of good videos and continue to do that. And I just hope that's a good resource for wherever people find themselves in the world who are struggling with the things we've talked about today.
That's so amazing. I'm actually going to take your quiz just to see what results I get. I haven't actually do that yet, but I'm going to.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Yes. So all your links and everything will be at the end of the video and in the description too for people to
Sure.
have access to as well. But this has been amazing. Thank you so much. I've loved talking to you and learning more about your journey and how you got here and like just brainstorming in other ways to connect with people.
Oh, I'm so honored. Thank you so much for the invitation.